Welcome back to the Bullpen. Mike and I weigh in on several things. Mike tells us his thoughts on Cam Smith, Framber Valdez, Nolan Arenado, and Jose Altuve, the new left fielder for the Houston Astros. Let's get going right now.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat it low in the way you can't hit it. You know you want to start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walking back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
That's right, everybody, and we are back to the bullpen. It's myself, H-Town Wheelhouse, Brett Chansey, and it's the man, Mike Stanton. That's right, former big leaguer, three-time World Series champion. Y'all know where to find me, H-Town Wheelhouse, on pretty much anywhere you get your socials. Find the show on Instagram, on YouTube, on iHeartRadio. Look, man, I'm always positive, always Stros, but Mike, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
Yeah, it's going to be Mike Stanton 29 on X, formerly known as Twitter. And sorry, folks, that we have had a little hiatus here. We've had some things going on personally in the Stanton household. But, hey, all is good right now, and we're ready to talk some baseball.
Yeah, man. You know, sometimes in the off season, we even have to take a break and take a step back. So it is definitely good to be in the fold with you again, man. Spring training is always a fun time of year.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, I'm envious of, you know, all the sights and sounds that I'm seeing. I got to experience it for one season. You got to experience it for 19 seasons and several seasons after that. So you're definitely, would you say a grizzled veteran? You know, I mean, you've been there, done that, right? I mean, you've
22 spring trainings. I went to 22 spring trainings. The crazy thing is, 21 of those were in Florida. I had never, prior to my last spring training, I had never been to Arizona for spring training. And
Okay.
I went to spring training with the Chicago Cubs, and that happened to be in Mesa, Arizona. So I did get to spend that last spring training in Arizona. But now there are so many teams. There's about as many teams in Arizona. Actually, I think there may be more in Arizona than there is Florida.
Yeah, it's insane how it's split up. You know, you would think most of it's, I guess most of it's by location geographically, isn't it?
Well, most of it's right around the Phoenix area.
Right.
I mean, and you know, you know, if you want to visit spring training, yes, Florida is awesome. You know, and you can go, it's going to take, you're going to have to do a little bit of traveling if you want to see, you know, several different teams. But I'll tell you what, you want to get your money's worth. You want to see as many teams and as much baseball as you can. You got to go to Phoenix, because that is where a large portion of the major league teams are. And, you know, Phoenix is beautiful. The weather is nice, very dry. And most of the complexes are as state of the art as you can get.
Yeah, definitely. I love the Astros complex, and, you know, I'm a little surprised before we get into the Framber stuff. You know, Major League Baseball is trying out the ABS system, and
Yeah.
Mike, I actually have a picture that I can share with everybody what the strike zone looks like for Jose Altuve and Aaron Judge with the ABS system. Check this out. This is interesting. So the strike zone is the little box in the middle with the home plate and with the three-dimensional cube. And Aaron Judge's strike zone is 20.93 inches. Jose Altuve's is 17.49 inches. That's the strike zone for both players. It's different. Now, I guess what I like about it is you're not penalized I guess you're not penalized if you're short, but you are kind of penalized if you're tall. But it's fit to each person. And I think that's always been, you know, an umpire, you know, he trains his eyes to go up. Of course, a taller player, he looks higher, but it makes you see the inches that are different. I don't know. Like I saw it and I was like,
when you have the regular human umpires back there, especially when you prior to Quest Tech and all the other systems that they had gone through in the over the years, the umpires had their strike zone. You
True.
knew John Hirschbeck wasn't going to call the inside corner. He was going to call a couple inches off the outside corner. There were other guys that had high zones, low zones. You had scouting reports on umpires just like you did, pitchers. And that's when. But when when was it? It was the early 2000s when they really started looking into these new systems, and the umpires hated it. Because now all of a sudden they're being second guessed. They're second guessing themselves because now something that they've always called a strike, well, you can't call that a strike now. And there were some real growing pains. We knew this was coming, and it's not at the major league level yet, at least not in the regular season. But you can see those in that picture you just showed us.
Yeah.
Not the rule book letter of the law as far as the strike zone. It's supposed to be the bottom of the rib cage, the bottom of the numbers, or the bottom of the letters, and then it's supposed to be the hollow of the knee. But if you notice both of those pictures, there's going to be a lot of strike calls that are taken away from pitchers at the top of the zone, because if you saw that,
that's true.
A belt is not going to be considered a strike. So
yeah, that's true. So
are those? I mean, they're pretty specific with the inches and all that kind of stuff, but exactly where does it start and where does it end? We'll have to wait and see what really happens there. But I think the first, I just happened to be watching, I can't even remember which game it was, but it was like the first challenge that a team put out there, and it was a pitch at the top of the zone. And the ball was, clearly when they put the strike zone up of what they were going to call, it was like 4 or 5 inches high. It wasn't anywhere close.
I saw it. It was the Dodgers. And the catcher caught it up in the zone and brought it in the frame.
Right.
He framed the pitch, and the umpire rung him up, and then the batter did the helmet.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's wild.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, that like I said, there's going to be some growing pains, but I always thought that this was what was going to happen, that you weren't going to be able to have just a generic strike zone, that, come spring training, everybody was going to get their measurements and this, that, and the other, and everybody is going to have a different strike zone. And that, to tell you the truth, that's what it should be. That's what it should have been all the way through baseball history. But, when you're using human eyes and balls coming in at, dipping and diving and darting and, coming in at high velocities and then, slow velocities and all kinds of stuff, the human eye just doesn't work that quickly and be able to register, the differences in a Jose Altuve and an Aaron Judge.
And then, comes in a whole nother aspect of the game is when you use them. I mean, you don't use it.
Now you're talking about, and this is something that I always go back to Tito Francona. Mm-hmm. And, there were, I can't remember, it might've been the catcher's rule, the Buster Posey rule, where, you had to have, sliding lanes, and you had to have this and that and the other. And Tito was awesome, because the first thing he said is, now we have to figure out how to use it to our advantage. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be strategy when it comes to these, because it's not like you have a half a dozen of these challenges. There's only a few, and you don't want to waste them on, bases loaded, or nobody on, 2 outs in the bottom of the first. You don't want to waste one in that situation. Whereas you get closer, get the games on the line later in the game, and you've already used your challenges. So there's definitely going to be some strategy when it comes to win and who gets to use these.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they get 2. I was thinking they get 3. I know in AAA they got 3 per game. And I remember talking to one of the not clubhouse attendants, but one of the stat guys in the press box last year, JJ Metijevic, when he was still with the Astros, when he was down there in AAA, he had 3 challenges, 3 games in a row that all went against him. And they said, you want to talk about getting upset? He said the third time it happened, he's like, JJ about threw all his equipment off. He was so furious. And because they've got the replay on the screen, but the thing is, it's pretty instantaneous. It's pretty flawless, but they have a person in there. Like every single pitch, they're ready. They got their hand on that button. Someone asked you real quick, when you pitched in Arizona, did you notice anything different when you pitched in Arizona?
Oh, absolutely. The one of the things you do in Florida, especially early in spring training, there's always humidity. So getting a grip on the ball, and I had heard that over the years that it's so dry in Arizona, especially in the spring, and breaking balls don't break and all that, and it's so hard to grip it. And I was, kind of took it all with a grain of salt. But after spending 21 spring trainings in Florida and then go to Arizona, everything the ball was so dry, it almost felt like there was a chalk on it.
Oh, it was almost too. It almost had too much grip.
Wow. No. It was so dry that it was slick. Like there was almost a powder on the ball.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And trying to find a seam to throw a breaking ball was definitely a challenge. And the spring that I was there, there was very little. I think we had one rain day the whole 7 weeks we were there. And the whole rest of the time it was bone dry. I mean, the humidity was extremely low in the teens, in the percentage, maybe the low 20s. And man, you're constant. I mean, I had teammates that had bloody noses every day just simply because the sinuses were so dry.
Yeah.
And so, it was definitely something that I had never put up with in my big league career. And I had been to Arizona, I'd been to, to Colorado and that kind of stuff, but never for any extended period of time and never trying to make a team.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. We know Framber Valdez is not trying to make the team, where Jose Altuve thinks he's still trying to make. Yeah, I think he's okay. Jose Altuve says he's just trying to make the team.
That's right.
But we all love his almost childlike affinity for baseball. But Framber comes in, Mike. He comes in a year where this is his last year under contract. After this year, he's a free agent. He is the guy, and I'm going to say it just like I said it for Kyle Tucker. And so I thought, but I'm really starting to like that trade. We'll talk about that later. Framber, I think, is that guy that you go after, that you extend, because you don't have many pitchers like him in the game today that can go the 175 or 200 innings. And you don't have to worry about him breaking. He's not made of glass. He's not, he's been very fortunate, outside of a couple mental breakdowns here or there. He's really that guy you can depend on. But he came out, his first couple innings looked good, induced 6 or 8 ground ball outs. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal. How important is it for Framber, who is the ace of this club, to not only get off to a good start, but get into a flow in spring training before opening day?
Well, listen, at this point, it's great to listen. You put up zeros early in spring training. It just makes life easier. Okay.
Right.
You're not stressing out. Not like you said, they're not like trying to make teams, but confidence goes up and down for an established big league player, just like it does anybody else in life. And so you go out there, you want to get off to a good start. And Framber did that. One of the things that all of these pitchers, especially the relievers, are doing, and we'll get to how well they've pitched here early in spring here in a little bit, but a lot of times, especially the relievers, you're spending a lot of time kind of treading water, trying not to peak too soon. And, I know that, early in my career, when I was trying to make clubs, I always went into spring training ready to pitch. I mean, ready, especially in the minor leagues, I was ready to go multiple innings when I got to spring training. Now, when you get to spring training, you still have to go through all of the steps. You got to throw multiple bullpens. You got to throw live batting practice. I had done all that multiple times before I even got to camp. So you kind of taking steps backwards. And for relievers, guys that aren't looking to build up a big pitch count like a starter is, man, you spend a lot of time in spring training just going through the motions. I can tell
Yeah,
you my first year with
yeah.
the Yankees,
Mhm.
I go to spring training, and I was coming off of a different system in Atlanta.
Okay.
Atlanta, which actually was in West Palm Beach. Now, not nearly as nice a facility as they're in now, but West Palm Beach. And, we did things differently in the organization. I mean, from the very first day of spring, we were throwing live batting practice to each other. Pitchers were hitting off of pitchers. So guys like
Wow.
John Smoltz, nobody wanted to get in there. He threw too hard. He didn't know where the ball was going. Glavine, yeah, I can hit against Glavine. Glavine's, doesn't throw real hard, throws a lot of strikes, that kind of stuff. But then when I get over to the Yankees, and I had been away from the Braves for I think it was the second spring training away from the Braves. And they wanted us to throw like 5 bullpens. And I could not have been more bored. And I could almost see, feel the heat on the back of my neck from all the glares of the organization. So I just signed a 3-year deal with them. And I couldn't get the ball to the plate. I couldn't throw a strike. I could not have been more bored. And I remember Joe Girardi talking to me at the beginning of the regular season. And, he's telling me a story. He goes, I caught you in spring training, even in the games. And I was like, this guy, he's like, this guy, he's not throwing very hard. This isn't great stuff. It's not, he's just, why is this guy, why did we sign this guy to a 3-year deal?
Right.
Till we got to opening day. We got to opening day. You put the second deck on the stadium. The adrenaline picks up. The first pitch I threw to him was a good fastball. And he tells me later, he goes, oh, now I know why we did this. Because spring training, at that time was just, I had 7 weeks to get ready to throw 20 pitches.
Wow.
So relievers have a tough time in spring training sometimes, just trying to not peak in, mid-March. You're trying to wait until the regular season starts, and that's when you want to hit your flow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because we've had some really good outings so far from our relief pitchers. A couple of our starting prospects, gave up 3 runs in a couple outings. AJ Blueball and Colton Gordon. I mean, these guys are going to do that. But Ryan Gusto came out 3 strikeouts in his appearance. Spencer Arrighetti gave up 3 walks. But he had 2 strikeouts, and he said when he came out, he said number one, he hadn't pitched with the pitch clock all off season. And he said he felt rushed and he didn't really like where his pitches were. He said in between innings, he said he looked at what he was doing. He made adjustments. And they also said, we noticed you're talking a lot more this year. He goes, well, last year, I didn't want to say a word. I came in, I knew my place. I wasn't going to say anything. He said, now this year, I still know my place. I'm not looking to make a whole lot of noise, but I have a lot more confidence. And I thought this was interesting. He said, last year I was throwing to make the team. This year I can relax. I know what I have, and I get to experiment with things that I want to do. So he threw more changeups than he's ever thrown to a few batters early on in a game. And so you love hearing that. We talked about Spencer Arrighetti, how he caught fire, but it's great to see these guys who are in their second or third turn in spring training and really loosen up, because I think a confident Arrighetti could be a massive boost to this 5-man rotation that we see going into the season.
Mindset is everything. It really is. And, when you're an established major leaguer, yes, you can go out there and you can try something new.
Right.
And if you give up some hits, you give up some runs, it doesn't even mean you put something in your pocket and say, okay, that doesn't work. Maybe we need to do more work on it. You still want to get outs, and, there's still, everybody can use a confidence build up. But for the young guys, what are you trying to do? Some of these guys, or most of these guys, they're not going to be on the major league roster come opening day. But what they are doing is they're trying to open eyes. They're trying to let Joe Espada, Josh Miller, let these guys see what they have, what they're doing at their best.
Right.
And because somebody's going to have to be called up. No one has ever gone through a major league season with 13 pitchers. There's always going to be calls, people get hurt, lack of performance, all that kind of stuff. And, pitching coaches and managers, they actually go, well, you remember how well such and such threw in spring training? How is he doing in the minor leagues? Oh, he's getting some guys out. Okay, well, let's give him a chance.
Right.
And that's how it works. That's why spring training is so vital to these young players. Now, the other side of this, the organizational side of it, you talk to any good scout, they'll tell you have to be wary of how well players play in spring training in September. Now, September's a little different now than it used to be. It used to, a 40-man roster, you could call a whole bunch of people up. Now you can't have that. But the point was sample sizes are very small. You go to spring training, these guys have been throwing bullpens. Most of these guys, none of these guys are coming in just trying to get in shape. They're coming in to make a baseball club. And what does that mean? That means they're ready to pitch now. They're in mid-season form now. So you're going to see them as good as they can get. And the other side of it is you have to take it with a grain of salt just simply because the hitters aren't ready.
Yeah.
The hitters are not ready for velocity. The hitters are not ready to see, the real tight breaking balls. Yeah, they've been taking swings. They've been, they've been doing all of their work in the offseason. But it's different when you get into spring training and you start seeing, guys that are really cranking on the ball. And it takes time for them to get their timing back. So you always have to take it with a grain of salt. But it's good to see some of these guys throwing the ball well early.
Definitely. Well, I definitely want to tell everybody this, that if y'all are looking at going to spring training or you're looking at getting into that spring training mode, you need to go to ramshirts.com. You need to make sure you buy your Back to the Bullpen shirt with Mike and Brett. Wear that to Cacti Park or Cacti Stadium, as they call it. Check it out. Hey, listen.
Of the Palm Beaches.
Well, exactly. Look, Craig Biggio saw my shirt at the TriStar show a few weeks ago. He goes, Back to the Bullpen. I like that. I missed getting a plug for the show, but I'm going to keep working on it. I would love to have Biggio, Mr. 3000 on here. But seriously, Mark at Ram Shirts does a great job. He's a local guy. He does stuff for businesses. So y'all need to check him out. And also, listen, our guy Ever Cruz at 1616 South Friendswood Drive will get you cleaned up. He got me cleaned up. I went in and he had a spot and he's like, hey man, I've got an open spot. You want me to give you a quick cleanup? I was like, sure, man. Why not? He did that for me. And also he wanted me to let y'all know that he is looking at hiring more barbers, more,
business is expanding. Yeah.
So contact Ever Cruz, tell him that Brett Chansey from Back to the Bullpen sent you. If you are a licensed barber, he would love to have you in his shop. It's in Friendswood. It's a great place. Great places to eat lunch around the area. So definitely check that out. Mike, I want you to weigh in. I've talked about this a little bit on Locked on Astros, and I'm kind of gaining a little bit of a reputation as a Nolan Arenado groupie. I just think that it would be a great idea to have him for the next 3 years. I mean, and I think a guy that's motivated to win a ring at the end of his career would be someone who wouldn't be bad to throw into the mix with the guys you're going to have over the next 3 seasons. But what do you think? Now, I'm not going to ask you to give me like a probability number, but do you think Nolan Arenado, where he is, the kind of player he is, do you think he would add to this club? Do you think he would solidify that third base? You move Paredes to second, that solidifies him in the outfield. What is your professional opinion on Nolan if he does become an Astro, becoming a part of this team?
Oh, I think that he would be one of the more important players. I mean, because you have Walker at first base, multi-time Gold Glove winner. Arenado's won like 37 Gold Gloves in his career. Okay, it's not that many. It's like 9. But this has always been, and he still is, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. The dude defensively is an absolute wizard. As great as we've had it with Bregman all these years, Arenado's better. He is, and it's hard to say that because Alex has been so incredibly good.
Exactly.
But the Gold Gloves just simply don't lie.
No, they
And
don't.
and offensively, he hit 272 last year. Okay, which is good. I mean, that's a solid batting average. There was very little power, and that's what everybody is concerned with.
Right.
But he was also hit in the ballpark in St. Louis. Not a hitter-friendly ballpark, especially
Yeah.
for right-handers. So we know that is it Dakin Park? Dakin Park is very hitter-friendly, especially to right-handers with the short porch, with the Crawford boxes there in left field. And I think that his power numbers can absolutely go up. And I think a change of scenery could without a doubt help a player, a veteran player who has taken some steps backwards, but still is a good, solid player. You put a little additional motivation in him. I think that, and here's the crazy thing. I saw last week some of the numbers that were put together. He's owed like $72 million. Well, what is it? 10 of it is being paid by the Rockies. And then I think the Cardinals were going to send some money with him.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a former MVP caliber player, still a Gold Glove caliber defensive player, and a guy with still a bit. Again, he's only 3 or 34 years old. You're not talking about a guy that's 38 or 39 years old.
Right.
I think that you're going to get him for 13, 14, $15 million a year. I mean, that's a little bit more than a utility player.
And that's a whole lot less than you were going to pay Alex Bregman.
Oh, heck
a whole lot less.
And you get him for 3 seasons.
3 seasons. That's right. Now, look at this. Tiki said, I wore mine to spring training last week.
Yeah, hey, you did.
We were represented there. Awesome. Now, my question is, Tiki, did you take any pictures with you in that shirt with players? If you did, send it to us on social media so we can post that out there. I know our friend Justin Gonzalez he has our shirt in his rotation, and he told me this year he's gonna buy another shirt. So he's like, because I wore the heck out of that thing.
I like
it. But I'm excited about that. So Cam Smith, he is, according to Dana Brown, he's an aircraft carrier, and so
that is a large human being.
Yes,
I mean he is big, he is strong. He's and you saw him, what was it, yesterday, the day before, hit two opposite field home runs.
Yes, and those are because the game before he walked twice. So his first 2 hits were home runs. And this is what's interesting. He wasn't known for his power at Florida State, but when he got to single A ball before he went to high A, he hit a home run in 6 consecutive games. And so this kid does have power.
Get him hot. Yeah.
He is. And, he could be a 5-tool guy. He's slotted in as a third baseman. I think if you don't get Arenado, you could bring up Cam Smith next year for opening day, move Paredes over to second, have him be your third baseman. If you get Arenado, you still have an opening. You can put him out in right field.
Yeah.
And I think, this kid has the potential to be a 5-tool player. I liked what he said the other day. He talked about the culture. He talked about the enthusiasm that the players have, just the nature of the clubhouse. He said he feels comfortable. And he says that game with all his family there he said it was surreal. It was kind of like a dream come true. And you love it because he's 22 and he's walking in this clubhouse like he's 26, 27, like he's a seasoned veteran.
Well, you can tell he's polished. That's one of the good things coming out of college, coming from a big major program in Florida, that, they show these kids how to deal with the media. There's a lot of things that goes on. So it's not, he's not just a greenhorn. Again, you have to take it all with a grain of salt, just simply because I would be shocked if he makes this roster out of spring training. And the biggest reason why is because there is pressure that comes with making an opening day roster. Okay. Even if you're a bench player, there's still pressure. And at 22 years old, we know this Astros organization has always been extremely they really try and take the slow road.
Right.
So I think what happens is you send him to the minor leagues. You let him get his feet grounded in the Astros organization. You let him kind of find his stroke, and you don't rush him. You don't rush him to the big leagues, so that once he does get called up, you never send him down. If I were a big league GM, if I call a player up and I have to send him back down, that's on me. And what I mean by that is he just simply wasn't ready. Now, that doesn't mean he comes up and he has to just tear the cover off the ball. But, we've seen in the past players come up. The Astros haven't done this very often, but some of the other organizations have. The guy I always go to, the Oakland Athletics and Van Poppel. Todd Van Poppel.
Yes, I remember Todd Van Poppel.
He was, this was the number one pitching prospect, I think, in all of baseball. They called him up too early, and he never worked out. He got to the big leagues. He got lit. He got beat up, and it killed his confidence mentally, and you never saw him be that, top of the rotation ace that he could have been. And I think the Astros are always wary of that. So they are extremely conservative when it comes to these type situations.
So Todd Van Poppel's from Grand Prairie, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the same. I think is it Ben Grievous from there as well?
Yeah.
And so I remember, because we used to go to Rangers and Oakland A's games, because I was a big Mark McGwire, Canseco guy. I love the Bass brothers, and we didn't have interleague play, kids. That was before y'all's time. And so we're going up there, and they used to have a radar gun outside of Old Rangers Stadium. And Todd Van Poppel had the fastest pitch at that thing, and I think it was like 100 miles an hour. It was crazy.
Was it really?
Yeah, Todd Van Poppel had the record, and he said it when he was like a junior at Grand Prairie. And from what I understand, I don't know if this is rumor or not, but from what I heard, the Grand Prairie coach found that out and said, if you break that record, you're going to be benched. Like, he was like, I don't need you throwing your arm out.
What the heck are you doing?
Yeah. But then I also heard when he was making his, like, before he made his debut, or the first time he pitched at the ballpark in Arlington, is what it was called when it first opened.
Right.
He rode the elevator up to somewhere there in the stadium with Nolan Ryan, and he asked Nolan Ryan.
Really? That's awesome.
He said, "Nolan, do you have any advice for me?" And I'll censor it a little bit. He said, "Kid, don't F it up." That's all he said. That's all he said.
Well, he didn't really take that advice, because it just never really worked out for Todd. And it was all because the A's were really bad at the time, and they wanted to try and put butts in the seats, and they brought him up too soon. And, major league hitters, doesn't matter how hard you throw, if you don't put it where you're supposed to, they could turn it around. Even back then, because there were not very many guys throwing that hard in all of baseball. Now they're all over the place in every organization. Right. The hardest throwers are actually in the minor leagues. They're not in the big leagues.
Right.
They also don't know where it's going.
That's true. But I just remember that, Todd Van Poppel, I remember about Jonathan Peters, Brenham High School and all that stuff. But looking at what Cam Smith did with the Cubs, Myrtle Beach in single A ball, 313 average. His slash line was 404, 771, and 1174. And then he played, get this, 57 plate appearances, 15 games, moved up to high A. 57 plate appearances, 12 games, moved up to double A. Yeah. And along the way, he hit a triple in each of those stints. He hit 6 home runs in his first professional stint. And I mean, I think the sky's the limit with this kid. I don't see him going from where he is now, double A level, to the pros. I think, Mike, what they're going to do. So let's look at Bryce Matthews last year. Bryce Matthews spent a lot of time in double A, moved up quickly, spent a lot of time in AA, didn't move up. He only played 12 games in AAA and struggled once he got to AAA. I think they're going to give Cam Smith a lot of success chances, and he's probably going to do well down in Corpus. And then once they feel like he's at that threshold, they're going to move him up to AAA. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be a late season call-up, but if he is a late season call-up to give him some reps, I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's one of those kids that would break that mold. But I would like the goal for Cam Smith, and everybody's like, put him in now. We have a weak outfield. Put him in now. But like you said, you don't, Jackson Holiday had this. He came up really quick. And what happened? He had to get sent back down. Now, he came up, ultimately contributed when he returned. But you do a lot to a player's psyche when you just springboard them up because, people want to see him. I want him on the opening day roster in 2026. I believe he'll be ready then, but everything has to go right as well.
One thing that, we have a better idea of who these players are mentally than, let's say 30 years ago.
Right.
But this is what I'm talking about when you come up to the big leagues and you struggle. How do you accept that? What do you do with that? Are you deer in headlights? Do you feel like you should be a big leaguer, or are you overwhelmed with everything? And a lot of that has to do with what's going on in the clubhouse, how you're, this club, the Astros have always been known to being very accepting of young players, of new players coming in. We've heard that, time and time again, countless times about how great the environment of the clubhouse is, even though the clubhouse has changed every single year since this run started.
Pretty much, yes.
With just personnel changes and then just guys getting older. You're just in a different spot. So Cam said that, he said how great the clubhouse is and everything. But again, the Astros organization, they're conservative in these situations. They want to make sure that the player is ready. And, you don't know what a player's approach is going to be or how much, any kind of trials and tribulations affects a player until he has those.
Yeah.
And what he did in A-ball, what he did in low A, what he did in high A, he was just better than those guys.
Yeah.
And once he gets to the big leagues, maybe AA, maybe AAA, or, maybe it is once he gets to the big leagues, at some point he's going to struggle. Then you figure out exactly what the kid is made of.
Who he is. And, I don't know, I don't know what made me think about this when you talk about character and stuff. And this kind of a random segue, but I think it's appropriate for baseball. Jackie Robinson, when he played, had to endure so much. And I remember in the 42 movie, the Branch Rickey character that was played by Harrison Ford said, look, I don't need you to go out there and be angry. I need you to be the guy that everybody's looking at, waiting to crack, not to crack. I just need you to be strong enough to be strong, basically, is what he was saying. And
needed to be strong enough to not react.
Okay. Right.
So Jackie Robinson was not the best Negro player. Okay. He was not, he was a very good player, incredible athlete, had gone to college, had done, extremely well educated, extremely well spoken, all that kind of stuff. He was handpicked, but it wasn't just because he was a tremendous baseball player. They thought that he was going to have the personality and he could have the strength to take all that and not, try and fight everyone that had something bad to say.
Yeah.
And obviously he did a great job, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he was the one that, really started the civil rights movement, because he was 10 or 15 or 20 years prior to, the civil rights movement, in our civilization, because he was in baseball in the 50s. So, it was a time that, there were better baseball players than Jackie Robinson, but he was handpicked by Branch Rickey because of his off the field. He was married, he had a stable, there was just, he checked all the boxes.
Right.
This is, something that, a lot of people talk about in our civilization today, checking boxes.
Yeah.
He had checked all the boxes that needed to be checked, and then he went out and performed exactly how Branch Rickey wanted him to. Now, was it tough?
Oh,
And I don't, and
I
as
can't even
great as a
imagine.
movie 42 was, multiply that times 100, and that's probably closer to what he really went
Oh
through.
no, right. I mean, yeah, that it really doesn't even do justice or service to
Yeah.
what he and so many other players went through. Anyways, but I just thought about that, and but some of these kids that we have on this team, like the Bryce Matthews, like the Cam Smiths, they appear to have that mentality, that tough mentality.
The
Bryce
Astros are kind
Matthews,
of known for that.
yeah.
You know,
character guys.
how many times have you had? I mean, Spencer Arrighetti was a perfect example last
Yeah.
year. He came up and he stunk.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first and against the Kansas City Royals, not a powerhouse team, but not
Right.
a terrible team. Got through the first 2 innings, lickety split, and then dropped a 7 spot in the third. And I think what it showed more than anything else, and he did that several times through the first couple months of his big league career, but that shows how mentally tough he was, because he was able to make the adjustments at the big league level and then end up having a very strong year and is in a solid position for the rotation going into 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would have said that, after his third or fourth start, you would thought, you guys are crazy. Spencer Arrighetti, he doesn't have it. Yeah, he's got good stuff, but he doesn't know where it's going. He's susceptible to the big inning.
Right.
And I think it just shows how mentally strong he was, or he is, to work his way through that in the toughest league there is in the world, Major League Baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Man, Mike, this has been a great conversation. We definitely need to make sure we get together next week. There will be
we're gonna get back in. We're gonna get back into it. Baseball is here. Spring has sprung, at least for today. I think tomorrow is supposed to be nice too here in Houston.
Yeah, 77. You can't.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Not too hot. I mean, on the way home, I rolled the windows down. Had the wind blowing through what hair I have.
Yeah. I see in the flow.
Yeah. Everyone's like, is that guy balding as I'm driving by because I don't have my hat on?
Well, and everybody's white as a ghost because we haven't seen the sun in freaking weeks.
We're like from Michigan.
Right.
Oh man. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting storylines for this team.
There are.
I know there's, already, fan bases of other teams are already chirping. It's going to be a long season for your Astros, and the Rangers are going to win the division.
I've had those conversations.
Look, the Rangers, I think, are going to be strong, and we will at some point do a season preview. And I don't know how you feel about predicting like division winners and stuff, but I'd like to get into some of that because that's always fun to do. I don't know how you feel.
I mean, I MLB Network Radio, they have us do it every year.
Okay.
I mean, it means absolutely nothing. I mean, all it is basically a talking point because, I mean, you can't predict anything. Baseball, there's so many things happen. I mean, just look at the Astros season last year.
Yeah.
I mean, for them to win the division was really a miracle.
It was a miracle.
And what did it take? It didn't just take the Astros getting hot. It took the Rangers falling flat on their face.
Exactly.
So,
I think the Astros are going to do that this year. I think the Rangers are going to be pretty good.
I think the Astros should still be the pick in the West.
Right.
Okay? But the Astros are going to be in a little different situation this year, just simply because, they are not one of the teams that are picked to win the World Series. I mean, they are long shots. I don't think they're in the top 6 or 7 or 8 in the list. And most of those are for National League teams because the National League is stacked. But I think that, the Astros maybe can relish in the idea of actually being an underdog.
Being a chaser instead of the chased, right?
Yeah. Well, they're still they still won the division.
That's true.
You're the title holder until somebody takes the title away from you. But I just think that this is going to be a little different situation, just simply because the Astros aren't looked at as the powerhouses like they've been in the past.
And one of the things I want to get into in a show before the season starts is I want us to get into who we think the top 3 pitching staffs and top 3 offenses in each league. I think that would be something good to look at. So of course we got some teams that, there's still starters out there that haven't signed. And so we don't know all the starting rotation, but once that gets formed, that'd be a really good conversation to have. And it'd be good to get your thoughts on some of the teams you played for, the Braves. I mean, hey, the Red Sox, I mean, they added Walker Buehler. The Yankees added people. So, I mean, it's going to be, I think the pitching dynamic, Shohei Ohtani is back pitching. Now I think his development on the mound is not going as fast as they want it to right now, but I think eventually he'll be.
I heard May. I heard.
Yeah. So May. Yeah. So he's kind of flirting with that idea, but he's going to be back there, and the league rules are such that they can list him as a pitcher or a infielder or as a fielder. And anyway, so there's a lot of stuff for us to get into, but we thank y'all for tuning into Back to the Bullpen. This has been great. That's right. Chris Reyes says we need our underdog story. I'm tired of going against the Cinderella teams. I want to be the Cinderella team. That's great. Let's do it, man. Let's make sure we make it back and get that glass slipper before the clock strikes midnight. You know what I'm saying? So, man, Mike, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah.
And everyone, y'all have a good one. And we are out.
Adios.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat it low in the way you can't hit it. You know you want to start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walking back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
Let me end it